was he the homeowner?
No, Pinky was Scooby's nephew. The homeowner was Scooby's sister and her husband, and that was their son.
I mean, that motherfucker was just worthless. I mean, he was like maybe what, Matt, 19, 20 years old,
Yeah,
give or take.
we call him Pinky Boy because he, or like Baby Mouse. We called him either one of those things because that's what he looked like. He had that kind of skin that was super white with like, like pinkish red around every crease in his body, with like his eyes and around
Yeah.
everything was all like kind of a reddish. So he looked like a baby mouse, and he had these really round, puffy blue kind of Garfield kind of blue eyes. So we just called him Baby Mouse.
The whole thing just fucking took his shit. The whole project, huh?
Oh man.
Oh,
Like I said,
it was
I've poured a lot of that project. I've poured into mental concrete. I can't jackhammer it open. My mind won't let me.
a fucking money pit. That motherfucker was a money pit.
Well, they
I don't even know where these fucking hillbillies got the money to get all this shit done.
well
I'm telling you. I mean,
well
it was like,
they put a laundry room in the middle of the house. Like the weirdest shit I've ever seen, man. Like you walk in the front door, and then immediately you would walk into what would essentially be the backside of the wall. It was like in the middle of the living room, dude. I can't even explain it to you in a way that would make sense. I just don't even know how to explain how fucking stupid some of this shit was. Fuck it, who cares?
Humble beginnings, right?
Yeah, I guess. It was all fucking destroyed. I know that shit. Fuck.
like hillbillies trying to do like the Beverly fucking look,
Yeah, you wanna hear a crazy drywall story?
Sure.
Like, I wasn't part of it, but when I lived on Maui, I went to work for these guys. One day I was out of work, right? So I started driving around like in some of the nicer neighborhoods looking for some crews, and I was like, fuck, maybe I can find some work. And I seen this guy because they had some stucco going on in this house, right? And it was a Saturday, and I pull up, and there's this little English guy, and or I think he was Irish, and I get out and I'm like, hey, you guys looking for any help? And he's like, oh, hey, he's like, how you doing? And I'm like,
Horse
like,
iron, yeah.
He's like, so you can stucco, eh? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, he asked me how much I wanted to get paid, and I threw him a number, and I had my brother-in-law with me, and I threw him a number. And so he's like, well, meet us out at this address come Monday, I was like, all right, man, fucking got some work. So we drive out, and there's this huge house, and right on the ocean, beautiful house, remodel. But so we're doing this job, and it was a stroke job too, because it was like some of these big houses were just stupid management, But they tell us the story that the job previous to that they were doing, this crew, they were working on Oprah's house up on the mountain. She built this huge, house. I mean, I don't know how many rooms, but probably like 20 fucking bedrooms, right? And they wanted plaster finish on everything. And and these guys, they did impeccable work. I mean, they were like fucking, these guys were pros, when it came to like the plaster. I mean, like shit I'd never seen before as far as like smooth plaster. I mean,
Like a baby's butt.
perfect, Yeah, not a single flaw in the shit these guys were like. And the guy was telling me how he worked on Buckingham Palace and all this stuff, back when he's in England. It was no joke, right? But he was telling me, so they plaster every room in Oprah's giant house, it's like 20 bedrooms, fucking maybe 50, I don't know. It's just massive, massive fucking house. And like, so the painters come in and they paint all the plaster. And there's like a hair, like, or maybe like part of like a roller, just some little piece of something like on one of the ceilings. And the Oprah has personal assistant who manages like all her shit. You know, he's like Superman fucking personal assistant. I forget the guy's name. But anyways, he goes over and he's like, "What's this?" And he sees like a little thing, like a little hair hanging from the paint in the ceiling. And he pulls on it, and it starts to peel the paint away because the plaster is so smooth that the paint isn't sticking to it. And it peels away the paint. And then there's a bigger spot, and he's like, "Oh, we need to fix this." And so they go, and they take some joint compound, and they fill it, and they sand it, and they paint it, you know, they spot paint it. And he comes back, and the next time he does an inspection, he's like, "Oh, I can still see that spot." He's like, we need to fix that. And what ends up happening is these guys have to go in with joint compound and re-skim all the fucking ceilings in the entire house and sand it down so it can be repainted. And they just work these guys over like unbelievable. Like, you know what I'm saying? They just fuck them in the ass, these Irish brothers that I was working for. And they're like, mate, it was awful, you know, we were in there for months sanding, you know, and applying this joint compound and sanding, and it's like, oh, it was a nightmare. We thought we'd never get out of there. And I was just like, well, I'm glad I fucking wasn't there, because I would have been out of there.
Fucking
But, yeah, just crazy, dumb shit, you know?
Yeah, that's just someone with too much fucking money, too.
Yeah, well, check this out. Like, maybe a couple years later, I'm working for this other guy. He's throwing me some jobs, you know, and he's like, yeah, we got this place up on it's like Oprah had bought it because she has this huge estate up on the side of the mountain, right? And so she started buying all the properties around it, anything she could get her hand on, because she was, you know, gentrifying the area. And anyways, so she bought this old farmhouse, or not a farmhouse, but more like a cowboy shack, and painted it like bright red, like barn red, you know, and wanted the whole inside plastered, but kind of like a rustic type of plaster. So I got called in to do it, right? And so I go in there and I plaster it, and it looks nice. Everything's perfectly painted, you know. It's like, I mean, not like crazy like her house, but everything's real tight. You know, the outside's all painted, you know, the floors are re-sanded, everything's brought up to speed, you know, some new appliances put in. And it turns out no one's going to live there. She just wants it to look nice when you're driving to her estate down the highway, and you look over and you're like, oh, look at that old farmhouse. Oh, look how nice it looks. You know? And actually, years later, I come to find out she was actually doing that to raise the property values of everything around it. So it would raise property taxes on all the locals that were living there and force them out of their houses because they couldn't afford to live up there anymore. And I was like, that fucking crazy fucking bitch, dude. But that was like their whole plan, you know, just to drive everybody out, because it was like kind of like old cowboy country up there, you know, just poor, kind of like people lived there their whole lives, you know, very, you know, just raising cattle and shit, nothing special.
So she was going to try and drive up the real estate value so that they wouldn't be able to pay taxes on their stuff?
Yeah, and then she could buy up their land, because it was like they had land, but they didn't have money.
Snap it up in like an auction and shit?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, she gentrified the whole side of the mountain. So she could buy it all up.
What an asshole.
She already had like a couple hundred acres on her ranch. She just wanted it all, you know. And you know, I was happy to get the job. I didn't realize at the time what they were doing. You know, I was like, cool.
You contributed to her dynasty empire.
Yeah, just another fucking cog in the wheel.
The wheel of samsara.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, a lot of people act like she's very generous and she gives cars away to people. She don't give a fuck about
You get a car, you get a car.
Yeah. Meanwhile, I'll steal this motherfucker's land.
Well, hey, let's circle back, man. We're talking about fucking fuck Oprah. But circling back to Scooby, when was the last time?
She's a satanic bitch.
When was the last time you remember interacting with Scooby?
Me?
Yeah. And then Greg.
Shit, man. I don't actually know. I think the one last time I remember seeing him was down at the bowling alley in Batavia. Like giving him a ride down there, and he was just being a drunk bastard, you know, fucking using us like chumps, you know. Hey, can I get a ride? You know, that kind of shit.
Yeah, I fell victim to that shit. I fell prey to that scam a couple times myself.
Yeah, you might get like half a hit or some resin, like a resin hit off a bowl in exchange for.
Here you go, man. But he'd act salty about it and shit. You're like, what a dick. Fuck you. How dare I ask for gas money when I've been carting your fucking lame, stinky carcass around for fucking a week? Sorry
You
to...
have to keep the windows down overnight just to get that fucking stench out.
Shit. That lasted a couple goddamn weeks anyway. A very unique, specific musk that he gave off.
Remember that night we went? Well, I tried to introduce Matt to him because I thought, you know, I was like, oh, he's pretty cool, you know, and so I took Matt out there one night, and we were out in the barn, remember, and he was just being a little douchebag.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, he's just being a dick to Matt. You know, I was like, hey, it's my friend, you know, and he's like, oh. You know, I forgot what he said, but he was being all standoffish and just like.
Well, yeah, I was expecting some sort of like, you know, cool, like fun time, interesting. This is gonna be kind of cool. Meeting this guy I'd heard about, and yeah, met him and he was just a dickhead. I was like, you're a punk, man. Fuck this guy. Those beady ass eyes, fucking darting behind those.
How George would be, you know, you try and introduce him to someone and then just totally fuck it up.
Yeah, because it wasn't his idea.
Yeah, just be an asshole to like your friends and be like, oh, thanks for being a fuck.
Listen.
Yeah, he fucking looked. He had the same. I mean, he could have made some fucking money. All they had to do is put a fucking eye patch on that motherfucker. Put a hook, like a fake hook, on one of his fucking hands, and a fucking parrot on his shoulder, man.
On Scooby? Oh yeah, dude.
Like Scooby? Oh, he would have been perfect fucking pirate, man.
Yeah, he could have been like
Bandit or fucking whatever. I mean, that motherfucker could have made some money in Hollywood.
Yeah, right.
So like, oh shit, the fucking perfect image of a fucking stinky, fucking nasty ass, farting fucking pirate, man.
Yeah, he was like Jack Sparrow's like dirty uncle.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I mean, he was a fucking, I mean, just by looking at him, you're like, man, that motherfucker is a character, man. And even the way he talked. Wow. I just met him on a job site, you know, so I mean, I got the full fucking, you know, sweaty, stinky, farting. I mean, the fucking jokes that came out of this guy were like fucking. I mean, that was like straw shack shit, man. Straw shack. Oh yeah. Just like gloomy, kind of fucking weird. I mean, you just never knew where this guy was gonna go. Oh.